Welcome to Rhythm Roads. We do it again. That just caught me off guard. That was funny. All right. Welcome to Rhythm and Roads, everyone. I'm your host, Joshua Jacob. We have a very special guest. We have songwriter, actress, and musician Jenna Ivey. So, welcome, Jenna, to Rhythm and Roads.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, such a pleasure to have you on and looking forward to hearing your story. Just before we actually started, we were discussing what she does for Valley Sessions. So, I guess we'll continue that because I was already ready to hear her. And I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
I haven't even started the interview.
Starting the interview before you started.
Yeah.
Yeah, Valley Sessions, my first attraction was as a musician being asked to shoot with them.
Okay.
And that was a long time. That was before Valley Sessions was off the ground. And then once it was off the ground, and before I even shot my session, I started helping as like a music coordinator of sorts. So
Oh,
basically,
cool.
Ryan Robson, who you've interviewed,
Hmm.
amazing person.
Right.
He doesn't have a background in music, quote unquote. And so he kind of relied on me to just help him facilitate those conversations. He has incredible music taste
Mm.
and really good instincts, but he doesn't have as much of the, I guess you could say, the word association, the way to talk about it. He doesn't have that knowledge, or he didn't at that point. He does now. And so I kind of worked as like a music coordinator, helping him with the musicians, and then also in the art department. So as like a production designer and a set decorator. Yeah.
So that's what you're gonna do today in Las Cruces is help with the music video.
Yeah, today is more so like now that he's more established, he kind of doesn't, I don't need to help as much to be totally honest, but
Oh,
we always need volunteers. And so I'm gonna go and just hang out and kind of just catch a good show because I guess for the people listening, if they didn't catch Ryan's, Valley Sessions is a live music session series similar to Mahogany Sessions,
okay.
um, even maybe NPR Tiny Desk, but instead with just one song.
Mm.
And so yeah, so we work with volunteers, nobody gets paid, and we just do it for the sake of music and for the sake of these musicians. And we bring people from New York, from Canada, from all over
Wow.
the place. Yeah, and so
All
it's kind
over,
of
huh?
just all over. It's so
Mm.
cool. Yeah, Christy May Casey, she was one of the last sessions, or was the last session that I attended, and she's from Canada originally, and then now based, well, no, she's still based in Canada, but she went to New Orleans and she's been traveling a lot. And I was able to, yeah, I was able to play with her even some just gigs and stuff. So it was great.
Yeah, I was at your show too with her.
Yeah, that's right.
It was
You
cool.
caught us at Margin Notes Book Bar.
Yeah, in El Paso. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I had a good time. Oh, interesting. Well, thanks for sharing about Valley Sessions and what you do. So that should be fun later on for you to help out and just
Oh yeah,
be
I'm
part of
just
the
excited
experience.
to see everybody. My schedule is such that I don't get to attend a lot of them anymore. In
Okay.
the beginning, I was attending more, but now like I just came back from Bandera and they had a session. I was like, ah. And so when I found out they were doing one today, I was like, I think I can swing that because I'm going to be going to Tier C the next day. So
Wow. Okay. I do want to bring up, weren't you part of a music fest or something recently?
yeah, yeah, the Bandera Songwriters
Okay.
Festival.
Yeah, yeah. How did that go?
Oh, it was amazing. Amazing. Incredible people. Just in a community that hasn't had this before, and yet it was so welcoming to the idea. I don't know if you've been to a songwriters festival or
I
not.
haven't. No.
Okay, so there's different, I guess you could say kind of different varieties or types. And I think what we tend to associate with festival, we think of like almost Ren Fair or like the Cherry Orchard Festival. Like we think of like a one-time event
Oh, okay.
thing, but this is specifically for songwriters. And
Just
so
for
this is
songwriter. Really? Okay.
yeah, so they bring songwriters in from all over the country. And it depends on the festival. This one was kind of a combination of the Dripping Springs or like Kerrville style mixed with like Songwriter Serenade, which are all very prominent, like Texas music things. And so Friday night was like a kickoff VIP thing. They put us up in a beautiful lodge in Tarpley,
Whoa.
Texas.
That's
Middle of
cool.
nowhere, you're surrounded by trees and nature. There was this funny little cat named Bob because he has a bobbed tail and he was just So great, but that
Okay.
was a side note. But yeah, so Saturday, the way it works, at least at this one, is Saturday is the festival day. So
Okay.
you start off with breakfast. They fed us. We did a songwriter circle so that we could hear one song from each artist, and then the rest of the day. Oh, let me turn off my notifications real quick.
Oh no, you're good.
So then the rest of the day is music, 12 to 8 p.m.,
Okay.
three stages, music constantly. And they're all within walking distance within Bandera. And so it was pretty cool. You got a little itinerary and you kind of were like, oh, okay. And you run around and you just keep like getting coffee whenever you can and you
Yeah.
do three sets and it's in the round style. So it's three artists to a stage at a time.
Oh
So
wow.
the sets are about an hour and each artist only plays about four songs. So in total, you only play about 12 songs throughout the day.
Hmm.
But yeah, it went really, really well. The city hadn't had one like that before, hadn't had a festival, but Dripping Springs had had a festival that's near San Antonio.
Okay.
Kerrville, which is extremely well known, that has a really established festival. So it kind of makes sense for another town to start popping up and doing this, and they did an incredible job. We were very well taken care of, and it was cool. It was cool. Like the first set of the day was only at noon. And so it was a Saturday, but you kind of don't know who all is going to listen to you
Right.
on at noon on a Saturday. And it was really neat because we would start playing and then you would just start seeing people just like fill this little area and just keep coming in and walking in off the street. And you're like, that's exactly what this is about. So,
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool. So it
it was
starts to build up, and you're like, "Oh shoot, we're getting a crowd now." Okay,
Yeah, it
pretty
was really
curious.
cool because they didn't. I mean, the people, not all of them, of course, but I feel like some of the people I talked to, they didn't really know what a songwriters festival was.
Hmm.
So getting to experience it, they really loved it, and it's like, yeah, it's an awesome time, and so it was great. And then Sunday was the retreat day, so we all just got to go back to the lodge and work together and collaborate and share more songs and stories, and so it was
Oh,
a great
cool.
time.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah, thank
Share your
you.
music as well. Speaking of your music, we are going to get into your story of how did Jenna Ivey come about? So what was the start of that? What was the chapter one, season one, or the other
Oh.
way around? Yeah, of your story.
Of which part?
Well, like
All of
I
it?
guess growing up, like when did you discover that you wanted to become a songwriter, singer, musician? I mean, was it do you have family that's also musicians? Was there some friends that you joined when you were young that started that interest, the spark? I mean, yeah, when did it start?
Yeah, I think I would have to give credit to my parents.
Okay.
Uh, really, they didn't ever press to do music or singing or anything like that,
Okay.
but it was readily available to us. You know, that idea of like nature and nurture kind of a thing. I think it was a bit of both. I think that we're all musically inclined, my dad and my mom, although she'll deny it. Um, and growing up, my dad had this incredible record collection and he
Oh,
would just
cool.
put on records. And so I was exposed to a lot of incredible artists. I didn't even know their names. I had no idea who they were, but I would sing along to them. I would listen to their music. And then I have a big family. So I'm one of seven kids and
Wow.
I'm the baby. Yeah. And so it was really cool because I have two other sisters and I didn't know what like harmonies actually were per se.
Okay.
But he would teach us how to harmonize and then we would just teach each other and talk to each other. And so I just grew up singing. I don't remember like learning how to sing. I didn't have any formal education in music. I would I would attend my sister's like piano lessons and I was allowed to just stand next to the piano and just make up whatever I wanted and just sing. Like
Ooh,
there was
okay.
no structure, but it was a really special thing because I feel
Good.
like I didn't quite understand that I was learning because it was very organic. It was just I was just surrounded by it and the environment. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my origin. And then when I was a teenager, my siblings were in a band, and so there was a family band with three of my siblings, Arlen, Jessica, and Jillian, and they played kind of pop rock, sort of folk, but more so like pop rock kind of
Okay.
stuff, like Matchbox 20,
I have,
like very kind of late 90s into the 2000s. And they would play at Starbucks. It was a different time, They would go to George Dieter and they would just ask Starbucks, "Hey, can we just play on the patio?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And so they'd
well,
set up
cool.
these speakers, and it was a really cool time. And I got to go to their shows. And my brother would ask me to co-write with him, and so I would just kind of give him my thoughts and opinions, and I was very opinionated, which I think he actually appreciated because I was always honest. And so I was writing with him when I was a teenager, and then I ended up joining the band when I was, I think, 18, something around there,
Okay.
or no, maybe a little later, but I joined the band somewhere in the beginning of my college
Okay.
years. And so I joined, I kept writing, and then I started singing for them. And then we toured, we released an EP.
Dang, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, it's really cool. It's funny, time goes by and then you're like, oh yeah, all those things happened. And yeah, we had like a really amazing tour, amazing CD release, sold out show. And we were doing really well. And then COVID happened right when I was graduating college, and so that kind of changed things. It changed everyone's lives, and in our case, like we never officially disbanded or anything like that. But my brother had a kid, my sister had a kid, my other brother, he works in film as well, and so I
Okay.
told him, I remember a conversation, we're very close, and I was like, the first call you get, take it.
Mm.
It's like the first call you get, just go because we were at a point in our lives that we never expected to be in. There were no prospects. Seemingly were no options at that time, and so I said, I can't go with you, but if you get a job, just go. And so he did. He went to Albuquerque and then from there to Austin, and I'm the
Wow.
one that kind of just stayed in this area, and then I started working in New Mexico film and everything. And so yeah, but anyway, that's the music story. And then Jenna Ivey as like a solo act was again kind of just this weird sort of tumble into this experience and opportunity. Valley Sessions was a huge part of that. Ryan knowing that I wrote music and then asking me to do a session.
Yeah.
And then Corpus Christi Songwriters Festival, which is another festival like what I was describing.
Okay.
They booked me, they asked me to go out for the festival 2023, I want to say. Um, or is it 20? No, 2024. It must have been 20. Yeah. 2023, I was invited just to attend. I think 2024, I was asked to perform. And then I was supposed to perform this year. But anyway, so I kind of just said yes. I was like, okay, sure. Like, I had no plans on sharing my music, which is a little selfish. I realize that now. But I was like, no, I'm just kind of sitting on it. And then people started calling me, and it was a huge blessing where I could just say yes. So
Mm.
that's kind of where I still am. It's kind of me trying to get my bearings and be like, oh, okay, this is a thing now, like I'm performing again. Okay.
Well, good. I'm glad that even after COVID and all that, you still were on the journey to want to pursue your art, your passion, your love for music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
I'm glad.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I saw something even the other day about that. There's sort of an inevitability to it, right? If it's a part of who you are, the
Yeah.
art that you create, the stories you want to tell, it almost feels inevitable to a certain extent. You
Right.
kind of can't stop it. Or if you do, it's gonna make you really miserable. There's gonna be something in you that's just
Yep.
dying, part of you that's crying. So
And you're the second that has said that recently on the interview that they felt that dying, crying.
yeah.
I mean, that missing piece
Yeah.
that's like I'm not doing nothing that I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? So yeah, we'll get into that later. More on that. So I do want to get into thank you again for sharing the journey from the start and where you're at as Jenna Ivy and the music part. Now the part of you being an actress is what I also want to know. So we want to share a little bit of that.
Sure, yeah. So, again, I never had formal training or education, and I also didn't have access to any theater programs or anything growing up. But I guess my my first kind of acting exposure was with one of my brothers. He would make us do these like home videos when he was babysitting us, and
Yeah.
so he would write these stories, and we would do these like scripts, and they were as ridiculous as you can imagine,
Oh,
like crime, thriller, murder, mystery, and just ridiculous stuff. And so I loved doing those with him, and I loved the storytelling aspect. And I think pretty probably associated with that, but pretty early on, I had this idea in my head that I never voiced, where I just kind of thought about acting, and I was like, I think I would be good at that. I think that I feel like that's a part of me that I would like to express, but I
yeah.
never voiced it. And I think that was probably because what was I going to do? Like, I was in an area where I didn't really have access to any of that stuff. And there's an awkwardness associated with saying, I want to be an actress. You feel very, attention seeking. And I forgot to mention, but my background too is I grew up on a farm, born and raised. And so I worked on a farm. And so
Oh, okay.
there was also this sort of discrepancy of like I knew what it meant to be working in a very practical way, and
Yeah.
so then the acting notion just kind of felt silly, and so I struggled with that a little bit, but I sort of just pushed it down. And then when I went to college, I knew I wanted to go into the theater program because I had this like brilliant idea where I was like to my brother, I was like, you get a film degree, I'll get a theater degree, and then we'll combine and we'll just be like so unstoppable. Um, and so I had this great idea.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
a cool idea.
it worked, to be
Yeah.
honest. And so I went into the theater program as a writer. Because of my writing background for music, but also short stories and poetry, I was like, I'm going to do writing and I'm going to just dabble in this. Well, you have to take one acting class as a theater major.
Okay.
So I was kind of I was excited, but I was also kind of dreading it. I was like, I don't know, I don't know. And then the department head, Will Kilroy, who I'll always be thankful to for this,
Uh,
he had this workshop class that everyone had to attend. There was only like once a month or something.
okay.
And he would tell you, bring your resume. Like I'll look over your resume and I'll give you notes or whatever. So I show up and I give him a resume and it's my crew resume. So it has some video production work that I had done in El Paso as a teenager and some stuff like that. And he looks at it and he looks up at me and he's like, huh, where's your performer resume? And I was like, what? And I was baffled. I was like, I don't have one. And he was like, I need an acting resume. And I was like, but I'm not an actress. And he was like, mm-hmm, sure. And he was just so adamant that I was an actress. And I was so baffled. I was like, I don't know why he's saying that. Like
Dang.
I've never done this stuff. So I
Yeah.
had to go back and I wish I could find it. Maybe I could, but I had to go make a resume and it was the saddest looking thing. Like it was completely made up. It was not fully, but it was like
Mm.
choir. And then it was like, oh, like background of this one short film one time or whatever. And it was like so empty. And I gave it to him and he was happy that I gave it to him. And I was like, okay, that was kind of weird. Well, I take the acting class and then jokes sort of on me because I end up really falling in love with it. And I fell in love with it. I'm not going to try and talk forever, but there was this one time the assignment was you're going to tell us a story. And the story can be fictional or it can be completely truthful. But the challenge was to try and implement different kind of acting styles and different elements into the story and
Okay.
just make it really entertaining was basically the challenge. So it was a writing piece that we would work on our own. And so I did it. And I had this story of my uncle who I was playing outside on the playground that my parents have, this old playground. I was swinging, and this old truck pulls up, and this guy gets out, and he kind of looks like my dad, but I don't know who it is.
Mhm.
And he comes up to me, and I'm kind of like a little freaked out. I'm like, this stranger just showed up at my parents' house. And then he starts talking to me, and I find out it's my uncle that
Oh,
I've never met
okay.
because he actually, a little sad, but he had been in prison for several years. And at that point, I was only like 8 or something, 8 or 9. And so I had never met this person. I had no idea. And I end up finding out and processing later that he was embezzling. And so he was arrested and he was thrown in jail. And my father and him had a huge falling out. So
Wow.
they'd never reconciled and he had been away and estranged for years and then he just shows up, and so I tell them this story in class and you have to make it very theatrical. And so I was talking about me playing with like playing in the playground and I was running around with swords and all these things. And then I described him coming up and that experience of like he was sort of familiar, but I didn't know who he was. And so I tell this story and the whole class like sits there for a second and then they all clap. And then I look and I realize some of them are really emotional and some of them are like crying. And I realized I was like, well, that makes sense, I guess. Like it's a pretty crazy story and it has a lot of emotion to it. And so I go and I sit down and my teacher turns to me and she's like, Jenna, before we move on, I just have to ask you, is your uncle still in contact with your dad?
Mhm.
Or if they've had a falling out again? And I looked at her and I was like, I don't have an uncle on my dad's side. I was like, that whole thing, I made up all of that. I was like, none of that happened. And she got so upset, but she was also
Oh,
like,
wow.
wow. She was like, you made all of that up. And the whole class starts, Jenna, and they start yelling at me and hitting me. And I was like,
Oh my
I'm sorry. I was like, I
God.
didn't know that you guys would get so invested. I just, in my head, I was thinking,
What a
wait,
trip.
I know, and I was like, in my head, I was thinking he's in jail for like embezzling. Why would like a farmer's brother be? And I was just so, I thought it was so funny. And so that was, I remember specifically sitting down after they had all kind of moved on and they had
Oh,
sort
that's
of gotten
funny.
over it. And I remember thinking, okay, this was really fun. I think I could keep doing this if I
Yeah, you're
convince
like,
all
this
of
is for
them.
me. I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Everyone's
So,
with their tissue, all crying. Oh my God, Jenna, I love
yep.
your uncle.
Yes,
Wait, I don't
exactly.
have one. Wait, what?
We're so upset, but so that experience really, I think, kind of solidified it for
Oh
me.
man,
I
you
was
made
like,
my day on that story. That was great.
you're just like, wait, what?
I actually believed you a little bit. I was like, oh, yeah, an uncle.
You're like,
When
wow,
you
they
told me
showed
like, yeah, it was made up. I was like, oh, back to
up.
the acting. All right,
Yep,
good one.
yeah. So that kind
Interesting.
of solidified a lot of my, I think, my acting urges where I was like, I want to do this more. And so in school, I started auditioning and
Yeah.
I did a lot of theater plays and musicals. I played Eliza in My Fair Lady.
Oh,
And
cool.
nobody knew that that was my first musical ever. And I
Oh,
was
wow.
playing like, and I was, it's a hard one, but
Yeah.
nobody knew except after I booked it. And then I was like, okay, I've never done this before. So it was kind of a huge learning curve to be like, okay, how do I do this? What does this look like? And then figuring out what, like, I don't know, this is something a lot of actors I feel like talk about, which is trying to figure out who you are as an actor, but then also find the technique that can assist you and not hinder you. And so it's kind of this weird process of like learning to unlearn. And
Right.
so I got to do that in school, and then outside of school, I've just kept doing it. And so
Wow. What a story.
yeah.
Jeez. That we don't have coffee to talk about this in person. I'd be like, oh my
I
God.
know.
Yeah, what did, yeah, I see, I didn't even know that side of your story. Just talking with you prior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
'cause we've only met like twice, I think.
Yeah, twice. But I mean, see, that's why I love this podcast. You get to know stories and you're like, what? You went through that? Like, you
Yeah,
did?
you're like, yeah, you're so weird.
No, actually, like, man, you're so cool. Like, you
Oh,
just,
thank you.
like, for you, the fact that you actually did some roles as a starting actress that were pretty big, I'm like, wow, you're just like, hey, I'm going to do it. I don't care. You know what I mean? Some people will
Yeah,
be like, no, hey, I'm just starting. Like, give me something just, to start with.
yeah, I think you kind of just I don't know, that reframing, right? Where instead of being nervous, you could try and associate those feelings with excitement. That's kind of what I did. And that's a trick that actors use too, like is I don't reframing's not the right word, but basically trying to trick yourself into being like, "Oh, I have butterflies and I don't feel good." But that's excitement. That's not nerves. And so I think that I kind of rode that wave. And also I was just very unaware. I feel like I struggle a lot with self-deprecation or insecurity. And so I think even at that
Oh, wow.
point, I didn't have a good notion of like, you deserve to be here. So I kind of was just like, okay, like I'll just do it. But I didn't understand why people were impressed. I didn't have a good concept of that. To
Mm,
me, it was like, oh, well, no, this just makes sense, right? Like I like singing, I like the story, I like the
yeah.
character. It just makes sense, right? And for other people, they were sitting there confused. And later I had that kind of realization where I was like, oh, that was pretty crazy to be so young and kind
Wow.
of diving into these things. And yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And good point to share that even through insecurities and self-doubt and criticism, that you are still doing what you love. Because I mean, we all go through that. We have experienced it even prior to stuff, but and that's the thing is you just stay focused and um don't blink. Don't if you blink, as in you let it affect you, but if you don't, I heard that from my brother because he told me that Spielberg got asked that in the 80s and 90s because he was pretty big, but he was getting a lot of backlash about certain things. And so they asked him, they were like, "So, what's your thoughts on all that?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't blink," meaning like I don't let it affect me. I just stay focused and just
Yeah.
look around me. You know what I mean? So I was like, "Wow." So he's And there's times in my life where I've spoken to my brother about like, well, what about this? I don't know. And he's like, Josh, don't blink. Just
Yeah.
stay focused.
You kind of have to.
You
Yeah.
have to. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too. Something I had to learn, I think, the hard way during COVID, was to let go of my perfectionism, and I'm still recovering, but I
Mm,
had to let go of it because to your point, that even that idea, like when I hear that idea of like don't blink and just keep moving forward, there's also a sort of surrender to mistakes where it's like you might make mistakes, but
right.
those are just going to be behind you. You can't do anything about that.
Right.
And so if you're always crippled by that perfection or you're always hesitating, you
Mhm.
will never do anything
No.
worthwhile. You'll never put out a single song, you'll never do a single role because all you can think about are the things that you haven't done yet or the inabilities that you have instead of just working with whatever you've got right now.
Right. The what ifs.
Yeah.
What are they going to think? How am I
Yeah.
going to be portrayed?
Yeah, you have to let go of that. I
Oh
mean,
my God.
especially for film acting, it's like, it is such a humbling experience to be an actress in a film
Right?
because you hope, I mean, I always try and be nice to the editors because they make or break films, but you also hope that they agree with you, like
That's
that they agree
true.
with your preferences. And
Yeah.
sometimes, or even the cinematographer, sometimes you see a shot and you're like, oh, like I don't look very nice in that shot. I certainly, it's not flattering,
Yeah.
but you have to let go of your ego and also be like, well, it tells the story, right? It does it in a way that I couldn't.
Yeah, well said. That's true to the point. Yeah. And it's true in the fact of saying if I don't if like you said, if you don't try something and because of fear or
Mhm.
something that is presented to you, like, hey, here's this. You want to do it? Here's this. But if you let yourself always let fear stop you on that and you don't know what's on the other side, then you never know that could be your road, your bridge to where you need to be in your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's going to stop you from a lot of opportunities. Now, the thing is, it's okay to fail. It's okay to mess up. It's okay, but do it in a humbling, merciful way to yourself of loving yourself and saying, hey, it's okay. You made a
Hmm.
mistake. You can learn from it. Learning's not bad. That's how you
Right.
learn. That's how you grow. That's how a lot of these greats artists out there got to be where they're at because they learned, they made mistakes. No one just starts out perfect and you're like, oh, I already know everything. No, you have to learn. Just like riding a bike. You get on the first time, you fall, get up, fall maybe second, third time, and then you're on there and you never forget. But that's the thing, you just keep going, keep up. So
100%. And those mistakes really are, they're so helpful. And to that
right.
point too, like it was one of the most frustrating things for me to realize, which was um, making mistakes and allowing room for mistakes actually makes you a much better artist.
Of course.
And it
Yeah.
was hard for me because I kept thinking, like, just looking at singing as one example, I kept thinking, well, no, like, I can aim for perfection and I should always be perfect. Perfect pitch, perfect this, perfect that all the time. And I realized, ooh, that's stopping me from giving better performances because there's no release, there's no flexibility. It's so rigid that you're just stopping yourself short. And
Very true.
it's a hard lesson to learn, but like like I play fiddle, ukulele, and guitar, and not very well, but piano. But in all of those instruments, every instrument I've ever played, it's so frustrating because when you're learning it, you're like, oh, I want to be perfect, or oh, I like this, and then you're like, that's making me so much worse. You have to be relaxed. You have to be flexible, and even trusting your body and your instincts more than you do now. That's the only way you can be that guitarist that you're just like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
that person is just incredible. That's the only way you can do it.
Mm.
Is that path through mistakes. I heard there's an amazing guitar player originally from Corpus that I think is in, I don't know where he is. He's up north somewhere, maybe Chicago, but his name's Michael O'Connor, and he's incredible. He could just like pick up on anything and just start doing it. But he said to me before, he was like, the truth is like you're only one note away from the right note. And he's like,
Mm.
so, and I always thought
Wow.
that was so interesting
Yeah, very
because
interesting.
yeah, because he would say like even when he's soloing and it's improv, that he would make a mistake and do the wrong note, and he would just slide to the next note, and then it's fine. Or he would repeat it. and then suddenly it's no longer a mistake, it's intentional, and it's like that flexibility is what allows for so much better work, really, in the creative field. So,
Right. Exactly. I totally agree. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. One last thing I want to add is to the point of like where you get to mistakes and the errors and all that. One thing like they say it's like you're gonna go through they're like is it Thomas Edison? He had 1,000 inventions or he tried for the light bulb, right? And he tried 1,000 times and didn't succeed. So it's like, well, like you said, in that one, you got to be flexible, like you said, to be at a point of like, okay, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try this, and it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you're gonna get to that point where you just have to
hmm.
let go, because if you stick to that focus, like you mentioned, of oh, I need to get this perfect, I need to get this right, I need to get this right, I need to get this right. You're so focused on that one that if you just say, you know what, just breathe, let go, and just let it unfold. And you're
Yeah.
going to be so surprised just how relaxed there your body's going to just adjust to the
Hmm.
where you're at, and then it's just going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe how great that turned out. Where I just didn't think about it, I just did it
Yeah.
instead of so focused on that one part. Like I need to get this right, man. I need to get this right, and the fact that you're like, don't, like, do not just
Yeah.
let go,
Yeah.
surrender, breathe, and just open your eyes and say, here we go. And then you're gonna
Yeah.
and people are gonna be like, holy shit, man, you did a great job. You're like, oh shit, where did that come from?
Yeah,
That's where the
exactly.
magic happens. That's where you just experience something of yourself that you're just like, whoa. And I've been there. And I know you've been there and you've been there. Where you just let life just do it. Just let it be.
Hmm.
So
I always think of like the like a river analogy, and so I always say like let the river flow through you. And
mm,
there's like so much release to that where
there it is. Yeah.
if you make a mistake, it's just gonna go by, just let it go by. And it's
So
helped me a lot. You've probably heard this idea before. I don't remember who, I don't remember the exact quote, but this concept where artists will never be satisfied, like it's
mm.
impossible.
I
Um, and it's
think
true.
I've
I
heard
actually
that.
think it is true. It's
Yeah.
inevitable. I don't think we'll ever be satisfied because you're always looking to the next thing or with the ways you can improve.
Very
And so
true.
you're always, leveling up constantly. But this analogy of kind of the river and letting it flow through me and letting it flow by is really helpful because it still somehow allows me to live more in the present, which I think a lot of artists struggle with because we tend to think, "Ah, well, but I already am thinking about where I'm going to be next year and oh, I'm going to be so much better at this and I'm going to be so much better at this and I'll have my stuff
Yeah.
recorded and I'll be doing this."
Right.
And it's like, but it's also crippling because if you do that too much, you're no longer in the present and then you're
Right.
not going to be building those steps that
Mm.
lead to where you want to be
That's
next year.
right. Yeah. Man, so great point on that.
Yeah.
Maybe we just go on all day about this,
I
but
know, just
you know,
like,
I know we're
oh,
like, you know what? Cancel your plans later. We're gonna just stay and do this. No, but
2 hour conversationalist. That's what Ryan always says.
right? I bet you guys have great conversations on set too.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, we're gonna conclude on this point and then we'll move on. But the point of just, man, I just had it right now too. Oh, yes. And I've experienced that. And I want to share by real quick on my experiences. If you're so caught up on the future and you're not living in the moment, like you said, you miss out on so much of the little things in this life of what today brings because you're so
Mhm.
focused on what tomorrow's going to bring when we're not even there. And I had to learn that too. I had to learn in a good while of trying to, because I was always thinking, what's next? Not for the podcast, but it was prior to that, just the future. But it's like, did you enjoy today? Did you enjoy the moment of today? Because today you are alive. Tomorrow you're not here.
Right.
And then you look back and you're like, dang, I missed out on this day that, let's say it was on a weekend, right? But you're so caught up on the future and you miss out on a great weekend when your other friends are like, hey, I'm having a blast. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Like, don't miss out on life, man. Life's
Tomorrow's not
precious,
guaranteed. Yeah.
Have a time for yourself and just enjoy the present. So, anyway,
Mhm.
good point. I love this. Everyone's gonna have great uh words from Jenna on this episode for sure. Like great words of advice for sure. Yeah, this is good stuff.
It's advice I'm giving to myself too, so
And me, yes, I
yeah,
took note.
let it be known that I might talk a big talk, but I'm still always trying to work on myself.
Same. Yep. So real quick, any future work on acting or music in the works? New, I know we're talking about not talking about the future, but hey,
Sure, yeah.
we do want to know
Yeah.
what's next for Jenna.
Well, by the time this comes out, I'll probably already have done it. But I have a gig tomorrow, Truth or Consequences at Love Buzz with Anna Maria Rosales, and I'm so excited for that because I'll be playing
That's
fiddle,
cool.
and doing my originals, and so that'll be really cool, getting back into some fiddle playing. And
Nice.
then I tentatively might be helping I might be doing fiddle for a Valley session June 30th, and so
Okay.
that video will come out later. And then I have some gigs. I have a gig July 11th as part of the Moonlight series for a museum in Las Cruces.
Okay.
I'm blanking on some of the other ones that are coming up. But as far as that's kind of the music stuff, and then I'm gonna try and see about maybe recording my demos and releasing them on Bandcamp
Hmm.
this year.
All
So I'm
right.
gonna try
Cool.
and work on that because I definitely feel like it's a little selfish to be sitting on my material. So,
Mm,
um,
time to
and
bring it
then
out.
I know I'm trying. And then later in the year, maybe I tentatively might be getting into some festivals,
Oh,
fingers
cool.
crossed. So
Nice.
I'll be out in Central Texas in the fall. And then for acting, I am co-producing and acting in a vertical series that we're going to be shooting in El Paso later this year.
Oh, wow.
Uh, that's all like secret, but it'll all come out pretty soon. But that's with a writer from LA, and so I'll be
Oh,
doing
very
that.
cool. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. And then I have another short film tentatively at the end of summer that I'll be acting in. And so those are kind of like where I'm at right now. And then my focus is just trying to see about, because I work in Central Texas sometimes for acting gigs because the industry is a little more established. And so
Okay.
hopefully I'll be kind of going around traveling a whole bunch, making a trip out to LA soon and then maybe Nashville.
Dang.
Yeah, that's kind of my whole
Oh,
here, but yeah, I'm trying to keep my head level. Oh, this is really important just to throw it out.
yeah, yeah.
I help coordinate a songwriter showcase series in El Paso called Take the Stage. And the Instagram handle is EP Take the Stage. I do that with Jez from the Pie Sisters.
Okay.
And yeah, if anybody listening wants to go follow us, please do so and support us. It's
Yeah.
just fully volunteer. But that is something that I'm going to be doing all summer as well. So we have a showcase coming up May 30th. And then
Wow.
the next month, we have a songwriter workshop, which, if you've never been to, is super fun and really cool. We give you a prompt in the space night of, and then you have an hour to write whatever you want. And
Wow.
then you share it with everybody. And so it's kind of an open mic workshop style thing. And so we'll be doing that every other month. So the next one's in June. But yeah, that's kind of everything I can
Wow.
remember right now.
Thanks for sharing your world tour on everything you're doing.
Yeah,
Good Lord,
it's
you're
it's a lot.
extremely busy. Yeah, well, that's good. That's
And
good.
if you and I'm doing photography again, so if you need actor headshots, reach out to me.
Anything else?
Graphic design, if you need
Oh
graphic
my
design,
God.
you need
And
a
then,
dancer. I know sometimes I'm like, oh man, I'm crazy.
hey, that's so cool that you're very skilled in all these different aspects of art. It's like, wow. Hey, I
I,
mean, I might hit you up on some photography. I've been wanting to get more into doing some headshots, some
I
modeling.
oh heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
More scenery, more like being out there in the scenery.
I see. Gotcha. More like portrait photography kind of a thing.
I guess portrait or I guess I'll have to show you an example, but like certain music artists that I follow, like U2, Sting, back in the 80s, they had a lot of their photo albums from their photographers take photos of them. But the
Mm,
thing is, it was really what I love so much was that their work were based on scenery a lot more than their own image.
gotcha.
You know, so like Sting in the 80s, there was a scene on photo where he's in a rugged old bar and there's this guy sitting on the counter and he's like leaned over kind of like drunk a little bit, but you just like he's probably having a bad day, right? And you see his bottle there. The background's all rugged, the windows are all smoked, right?
Mhm.
But then you see Sting standing in the back in his black trench coat and he's just chilling. And I was like, that's so badass. It's just like a like I'm not focusing on me. This is just what my album is representing of just that era of like I don't know. But it just but then the
I
fact
get
that he's you see him in the corner, you're like, why isn't he up front? Why isn't he like the main focus? Because he's the artist, right? No, he's like, no. I just get
Yeah.
the environment, let the word, when
Hmm.
you listen, and then when you listen to the songs, you're like, oh, okay.
Get it. Yeah.
It's just,
That's awesome.
so
Yeah. Have you?
I've been wanting to do something like that. Is model, not in a bar, but like scenery, desert kind of feel, kind of like maybe next to a rugged old part. I don't know. Something, something we
Yeah.
could find in a wooden fence or an
Yeah.
old rugged truck that's broken down or something and just be, I've always had that vision.
Yeah, for
Like it'd be
sure.
fun.
Let me
Anyway,
know.
yeah, we'll figure it out later.
I know because
We're not
you're
gonna
like,
go on this
oh, the
podcast about my
podcast.
idea. Next thing you know, you're just like, are you
Talking.
done yet?
No, no, never. No,
I'm
no.
just playing, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Jenna. I know you have a lot going on throughout the day, but thanks for coming on Rhythm and Roads. And real quick, for them to find you on social media and your music, how can they find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, you can follow me at Jenna C. Ivey, JennaCivey. For my music, I have little clips and excerpts there on my Instagram.
Okay.
And then I have material on Spotify through the Ivies. So if you just type in the Ivies music on YouTube, you'll find our channel. There's a bunch of covers on there and a bunch of older material. And then on Spotify, Colors of Honey, that's an album that I co-wrote.
Very
And I wrote the title track. And so, if you want to hear me for now, I would say do that. And then just try and support me online so that I can get my original solo stuff out for
Yeah.
everyone.
I look forward to hearing the originals once they're released from the archives.
I know, right? I know it's a thing. It's a process. The financial aspect is where I'm like,
Well,
okay,
yeah, that's true. There's always that, but yeah, just don't give up. Let it take its course when it's supposed to be released, not rushed. Like, okay, I need to hurry up and get it out.
exactly. Which is, yeah, not to get off on a tangent, but that is such a very real, important point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure and kind of stigma. I feel like if you're an artist that doesn't have material recorded, there's a lot of, not naming names, but there's other people that maybe act like, oh, you don't take yourself seriously enough and you're not prioritizing yourself. And I reject that because especially if you're as busy as I am, it's like you kind of have to let go of your supposed timelines
Well, yeah. Yeah.
rather not rush anything. I would rather let it happen naturally. And that's
Right.
not to say I don't prioritize it and take it seriously,
Right.
but let that river run through you.
Let it
So,
flow. Just let it, when it happens, it's gonna happen. And when it does happen, it's gonna be like it was worth the wait.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Cool.
you so much.
Thank you, Jenna, for being here on Rhythm and Roads and sharing. And we look forward to seeing you in the next shows coming up and your new music and photography and act and being an actress, seeing you in films and everything else you mentioned you're gonna do. So,
Thank you so much,
all right.
Joshua.
And I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Have
Thank
a
you
good
guys
day.
for, yeah, thank you for watching.